Welcome back to another episode of Family Finances Unplugged. Today we're diving into a tricky but crucial topic, blended family finances. Specifically, we'll be talking about how to fairly allocate resources when you're managing multiple households, kids from different relationships, and a mix of financial obligations. So let's start by painting a picture. Imagine you and your partner are sitting down to figure out who's covering the next school trip for your kids. You both have children from previous relationships, and suddenly things start feeling a bit tense.
That scenario is probably more common than we think, right? It's not just about who pays for the trip, but there's a lot of baggage, no pun intended, that comes along with blending two families. Financial histories, obligations, different expectations, all of that can create some real friction.
Absolutely. It's about more than merging people. It's about merging these financial landscapes that were built separately. And the pitfalls, they're plenty. For one, there's often resentment when one partner feels like they're contributing more, or when certain expenses, like those unexpected medical bills for a stepchild, start popping up.
And let's not forget the fairness debate. The classic dilemma: how do you define fairness? Many think fairness means equal, like a 50-50 split. But for blended families, it's rarely that simple.
Exactly. Fairness might look different for everyone, and it often requires a more creative approach. And one of the first steps in tackling this is really laying down the groundwork with open and honest communication.
Right? A solid financial state of the union is essential. Both partners need to be open about their income, debts, assets, and existing commitments like child support or alimony. Without that transparency, it's impossible to come up with a plan that works for everyone involved.
And a big part of this conversation is figuring out what expenses are shared and what should remain individual. For example, shared household expenses, groceries, rent, utilities, those are typically on the table for joint contribution. But what about expenses specific to each child? How do we navigate those?
That's where things get tricky. It's important to clearly define which costs are collective, like household utilities or joint vacations, and which ones stay with the biological parent. Think about things like individual birthday gifts or school supplies. Those don't need to be split down the middle.
Now that we've covered some basics, let's dive into practical strategies for equitable contribution. One approach that can really smooth things over is the percentage-based approach. Instead of splitting everything 50-50, each partner contributes to the shared costs based on their income. This ensures that the higher earner isn't disproportionately burdened.
That's a great point. The reality is that not everyone has the same earning power, and a flat split doesn't always feel fair. So, using percentages based on income means each partner's contribution is proportional to what they're actually bringing in.
Another helpful strategy is to set up designated accounts. You can have a joint household account for shared expenses like utilities or rent, but then each partner can maintain their own separate account for personal expenses or child-specific costs. This separation helps prevent misunderstandings and gives both parties autonomy.
I love this idea. It also ties into the concept of child-first budgeting. This means prioritizing the needs of all children equally, whether biological or stepchildren, and ensuring that those expenses are covered before anything else. When everyone's needs are recognized as a priority, it can alleviate a lot of tension.
Speaking of prioritizing children's needs, how do we handle the kids' costs conundrum? Things like extracurriculars, college savings, medical bills. It can be a bit of a minefield, right?
Oh, absolutely. Let's say one parent's child is in a really expensive soccer league. How do you split that cost? One suggestion here is to create a who pays for what checklist, essentially a document where all child-related expenses are listed and responsibility is clearly defined. This can help you stay on the same page and avoid surprise expenses.
And then, of course, there's the need for an emergency fund that accounts for potential unforeseen costs for any child. It's not just about planning for the known expenses. It's about preparing for what's unexpected, like a sudden medical expense or a broken laptop.
That's a really important point. Having that emergency cushion ensures you're not scrambling when something unexpected comes up. Now, we've talked a lot about the current finances, but what about the future? What happens if something were to happen to one of the parents?
Well, that brings us to estate planning. Blended families absolutely need to have updated wills, trusts, and beneficiary designations in place to make sure everything is distributed according to the family's wishes. Without that, someone could easily be unintentionally left out.
And on that note, life insurance is another thing to consider. If something happens to one of the parents, it's crucial that life insurance covers all dependents, biological children, stepchildren, everyone. This can ensure that the family's financial stability doesn't collapse under unexpected circumstances.
Absolutely. And finally, If the finances of a blended family are feeling overwhelming, or if there's a lot of tension, it might be time to bring in some professional help. A financial advisor or even a family therapist who specializes in blended family dynamics can make all the difference.
It's so important to remember that no one has to go through this alone. Getting professional guidance can set you up for long-term financial harmony. And at the end of the day, it's about building a foundation that works for everyone involved.
Well, that's a wrap for today. We hope this conversation has shed some light on how to navigate the complexities of blended family finances. If you're in a blended family, how are you tackling the financial challenges? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time.
Take care, everyone. And remember, financial harmony isn't a destination, it's a journey.